Well, once again, it was a historic weekend here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our governor, the 74th governor, Glenn Youngkin, gave his State of the Commonwealth address, his very last one, and our new governor, the 75th governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, was sworn in a historic inauguration where she became the first woman to be the governor of Virginia. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville, and you're joining us for our 2026 Virginia General Assembly series. Today, we're looking at our outgoing governor, State of the Commonwealth address and his 4 years and his impact, and the new governor, the 75th governor, and her agenda and what the future holds. As always, we want to thank you for joining us, as you always do, here on WNSB Hot 91, the Soul of VA, as we broadcast from none other than Spartan Nation, Norfolk State University. And once again, we want to wish all of you a Happy New Year, and we know that it is going well. And as we get ready for this Martin Luther King Day celebration, we are here celebrating the peaceful transfer of power here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, as once again, in 4 years, we have a new governor. You know, this weekend was tremendous because so much happened in this weekend alone, you know, especially here in Virginia. You know, Virginia is the only state where the governor cannot run for consecutive elections. So every 4 years, we have a transfer of power. And it's been a peaceful transfer of power as far as history goes. And with that, we find where now it only took 75 governors. It only took about 400 years, but we got our first female governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So now we have Governor Abigail Spanberger, who in about a few minutes, a couple of hours actually, she would have been governor for one full day. And it was a great weekend of events, as well as the General Assembly was in session on Friday. It was the last day for many individuals in the legislature, including the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, and of course the governor. So speeches were given and joint session was held and all that good stuff. And, you know, everyone was saying their goodbyes and everyone was being nice and so forth. And actually, I'll go back to Monday, where we had the annual Commonwealth Prayer Breakfast. And then on Friday, we had the Virginia Union-sponsored Martin Luther King Jr. Prayer Breakfast. And let me tell you, these were two phenomenal, the best prayer breakfasts that I've heard in a very long time, and many would agree. So we started clearly the session off the right way, and it started off with a bang in the middle when the session started on Wednesday. And after it started on Wednesday, the Democrats started flexing their power. Now, we're not going to talk too much about what took place in the legislature on this show. We're going to look at it next week, though, because I think there were two very interesting and compelling events that took place, aside from the 4 constitutional amendments that were argued both in the House and the Senate and passed and going to the voters. But we had two governors, one governor and one governor-elect, and then we had one governor and one immediate past governor. And we had events surrounding all of that. And not only that, but we also had some members of the legislature who were transitioning to the secretary office or secretary position in the new governor's administration. More specifically, NSU's very own Delegate Candy Munden King out of Portsmouth, Virginia. She will be the very first NSU graduate who is now currently the Secretary of the Commonwealth. My good friend, we are so happy for you and happy for your family, and just tremendous how God has blessed you and everyone surrounding you as well. And we had other members as well. Mark Sickles, delegate, who is now also the Secretary of Finance for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we had other members and individuals who were in former administrations and so forth be a part of now the administration for Abigail Spanberger. But before that took place, we had a phenomenal inauguration on Saturday, just yesterday, where, again, so many people attended. We had governors from other states. We also had members of Congress and the current members of Congress come. And it was just really a star-studded event, a really great event. It was very historic in itself. As a matter of fact, in addition to the swearing in of the historic first woman to be governor of the Commonwealth, we also had the swearing in of the first Muslim to hold statewide office in the United States of America and be sworn in as lieutenant governors, former now Senator Hashmi, Lieutenant Governor Hashmi. And then, of course, the historic swearing in of the first African-American Attorney General of the Commonwealth, none other than Attorney General now, Jay Jones, who's also a former member of the House of Delegates. Just tremendous amount of history was made on yesterday. In addition to that, your very own, that's right, your very own Spartan band, the Spartan Legion, performed one of 26 groups selected, only one of 26 groups selected to perform at the inauguration. And on top of that, they were only one of several chosen to stop in front of the grandstand where the governor at that moment, after she was sworn in, and they performed a phenomenal rendition that was arranged by our band director, Ms. Bethea, where they performed one of her and her husband's favorite songs. Tremendous. You should have saw the Spartans marching out there. You should have saw the Legion. And, of course, our now branded buses with, of course, Norfolk State on it. When we're coming down the interstate. We know when we're coming down the road. They look absolutely phenomenal, wrapped, beholding the green and gold. And before the swearing in, of course, later tonight, there was a gala. But before that, on Friday, there was a Made in Virginia market where from 3 to 8 on 17th Street Market and then 100 North 17th Street. There was a lot of vendors that were out there. And, of course, one of our very own here in Virginia Beach music artist, Pusha T. He's one of the half members of the iconic Virginia Beach rap duo, The Clips, with his brother Malice, where they performed. Also performing was Elance, which was a Richmond-based smooth jazz and R&B band. Synergy, an all-female band from Hampton Roads as well. Holy River, a musical folk duo from Richmond. And TZ So Dope, another hip-hop artist group of Hampton Roads. And a lot of groups that were there. And, of course, the governor-elect, the governor now, but at the time, Governor-elect came out to speak as well and greet everyone. So once again, from the Virginia Marketplace to the inauguration to the inaugural parade to the inaugural ball and all of the events afterwards, where today, if you're in Richmond or want to go there, it is tradition where the executive mansion is open to the public. This is the people's house. So true to form, every year that the governor is inaugurated, every 4 years, the doors are open to the executive mansion, and you can come from 2 to 4 where they host you. So first come, first serve. If you want to go up to the governor's mansion and go inside, you can do that, and so forth. But it's only 2 to 4 today, once again, in the Capitol Square, the executive mansion, which is the governor's house, which, by the way, the governor and their family, they live there. So Governor Spanberger and her family will live in the executive mansion. Of course, they'll keep their home. But they'll live there over the 4 years. It's a tradition carried on by every previous governor of the Commonwealth, making it the oldest continuously occupied governor's residence in the country. So absolutely tremendous. Again, congratulations to Governor Spanberger. And also congratulations to Governor Youngkin for concluding 4 years as our governor here in the Commonwealth. So, again, we had a time of festivity, a time of peaceful transfer of power, and it was just all around amazing. Something that we could see, something that we can, in the midst of all the chaos that's happened around the world, but especially in our country, we see now how, the rule of law works and process works when you obey it. So, again, just an absolutely tremendous, tremendous time. But I want to look now at these two governors, these two individuals, and how they actually govern. Now, of course, we want to take a look at the State of the Commonwealth speech by Governor Youngkin, but also want to take a look at former Governor Youngkin's agenda before he came into office. And also, we want to take a look at Governor Spanberger's agenda as well, as she is starting to have her time in office leading us here in the Commonwealth. So let's take a quick look at what is happening, what we see the governor wanted to do. So in 2021, Governor Youngkin promised to slash regulations on day one for business growth. Not only that, but according to the Virginia Mercury, he said that he would slash job-killing regulations, implement policies to start winning big time in the race to lure businesses and jobs to the region, laying out educational choice, diverse energy investments, and lower taxes as his top agenda items in his early days in the office. As a matter of fact, he talked about this. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce and Virginia Economic Development hosted an event with these speeches from the Virginia business leaders when they released their 2030 blueprint with the goals, of course, the group's goals for the state to support business growth over the next 8 years. Now, Youngkin promised to start by slashing, now this is 2021, 25% of job-killing regulations on day one in office and accelerate the permitting process for new businesses. Now, not only that, but also keep in mind that Youngkin's day one plan says he's committed to building at least 20 charter schools across Virginia. He also said that he was going to raise the standards in K through 12, focus on teaching our children how to think, not what to think. He also promised educational innovation, including more school choice and career technical education available in all the schools. In addition to that, Virginia at that time has had a top ranking in 2021 for CNBC for its business climate, but Youngkin described the state as being on defense and trying to compete for new businesses and investments with neighboring states. So his day one game plan focused on the elements that he said we need to put together to win. He said we are no longer going to lose in the competition for jobs, in which he promoted that to business leaders. Not only that, but he also said that during COVID, he received his booster shot for COVID, and he would actually promote COVID boosters. Although he said he would not mandate the vaccine. He said, quote, "I continue to be a strong advocate for the vaccine and the booster. Please go get it. I won't mandate it. I respect your decision." And he has consistently opposed vaccine mandates and mask mandates in schools. So according to the Virginia Mercury, 2021, 5 years ago now, that's exactly what he wanted to do. Now, according to the governor's website, Governor Glenn Youngkin, he signed 11 day one executive actions. And of those executive actions, this is what he did. He also said he included 59 pieces of legislation and a package of more than a dozen budget amendments that he was working on with the General Assembly leaders, including efforts to double the standard deduction, eliminate the grocery tax, end the tax on the first $40,000 in veteran retirement pay. And when he said it's a new day, for Virginia, and the work is only beginning. He also said that he was working on restoring excellence in education, making our community safer, opening Virginia for business, reinvigorating job growth, making government work for the people, and not the other way around. Now, these talking points and these agenda points sound very familiar, don't they? They do, because if you notice, our president had some of these very same agenda talking points. The reason for that is because it came from the same think tank, the Heritage Foundation. Now, let's look at these executive orders that the governor actually signed on day one. Governor Youngkin, in 2021, in January, signed Executive Order number 1, listen to this, folks, to restore excellence in education by ending the use of devices, concepts, including critical race theory in public education. Now, he also created what's called a tip line. Anybody teaching what they call critical race theory or real history, like what really happened in black history, American history to black people, you could actually call a student or parent can call that tip line and get their teacher in trouble. Remember, it was chaos. Well, think about what happened day one with President Trump. Eliminate DEI, divisive concepts, right? So, once again, this is not new. There's nothing new happening here. It's all from the same think tank. He also said, Executive Order number 2 he signed, now this is day one, empower Virginia parents in their children's education and upbringing, allow them to make decisions on whether to wear a mask in schools. This was debated, all across the board. Not sure why this was divisive. If you're sick, we're in a pandemic, wear a mask. Also, Executive Order 3, restore integrity and confidence in the parole board of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this is where he abolished the parole board and investigated the board itself and their actions. So basically what they ended up doing when it came to restoring rights to individuals who were convicted of felonies that served their time, it was done arbitrary. So they left it in the hands of the governor. Now there's a budget amendment. There is a constitution amendment which restores it automatically. Virginia makes it harder Virginia's the only state, well, not the only state, but it's the state that makes it extremely hard for individuals to receive their voting rights back. Just make it hard. Also, investigate wrongdoing in Loudoun County at that time. It was a case there. Make government work by creating a Commonwealth Chief Transformation Officer, very similar to the Office of Doge. Taking a look at waste, quote unquote. All right. And again, nothing new under the sun, right? Also, it was just another order that said declare Virginia open for business, support and combat human trafficking, support victims, establish a commission to combat anti-Semitism. And the other executive order signed on day one was to withdraw from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, RGGI. And what that did was he said it was costing too much. We need more energy, basically more diverse energy. Basically, what we wanted to do was use more energy sources that were not good for the environment. Again, drill, baby, drill, right? And we heard this before. In addition to that, Executive Directive number 1 fulfilled his day one promise to jumpstart the economy by cutting job-killing regulations by 25%. And also, he restored individual freedoms and personal privacy by rescinding the vaccine mandate for all state employees. Again, these were fighting words during that time period. Now, what did he say? In his final State of the Commonwealth address on January 14, 2026, approximately 4 years and 51 weeks after his day one executive orders. When he addressed the members of the Commonwealth, members of the legislative body in the Commonwealth, he touted how he believed he praised bipartisan cooperation where it occurred. And he also asked them not to undo core policies that credit for economic growth, particularly right-to-work laws, tax cuts, and his administrative approach to energy and education. The critical race theory and the tip line for history teachers, I think that's going to go out the window. But he also said that he was very proud and honored to serve as governor. He said he was elected in 2021 amid COVID pandemic, aftermath school closures, rising violent crime, and economic uncertainty. He said he led Virginia in what's called the Great Virginia Renaissance. He said that his administration reversed population loss, restored job growth, and stabilized state finances. Well, in his last year of his administration, due to the White House, that's kind of gone down the toilet. It's been reversed dramatically. We went from number one state to do business to number 4 in 1 year. So it took 3 years to quote unquote build up on what was working and less than 1 year to tear it down. He also said that he claims that Virginia had attracted more than $157 billion in business investment during his term. He pointed to various projects across the state. He said 270,000 more people working now than when they took office. He also talked about Virginia's right-to-work law, which prohibits mandatory union membership. He's asked them not to change that, and he believes that the success is tied to that. Also, it's citing more than $10 billion in budget surpluses over 4 years and $9 billion in tax relief enacted during this administration. Now, of course, some of that is a negative growth because if you give $9 billion in tax breaks but have $10 billion in surplus, and where's that money coming from? So that's really $1 billion, right? He also talks about budget decisions around tax cuts. He also talked about bipartisan legislation for Virginia Literacy Act and investments in tutoring, lab schools, and career technical education. He talked about how it improved all outcomes. And then reducing crime and fatal fentanyl overdoses by 59%, violent crime statewide by 30%. Right to Help, Right Now initiative, hotline 988 hotline, which is drawn bipartisan praise and support as well. And of course, he talked about his energy policy. All of this, he said, he closed his address with a reflection on Virginia's role in the nation's upcoming 250th anniversary, linking his administration's emphasis on what he called common sense governance to the state's founding legacy. He said it's been the honor of a lifetime for Susan and he to serve, and he believes that they've strengthened the spirit of Virginia together. He also said, before he ended, he said, we need to double our generating capacity in the next 10 years of energy, diverse energy sources he was referring to. Renewables alone, he said, which will drive up costs and risk burnouts, just won't do it alone. He also said Democrats have countered that abandoning clean energy targets would undermine climate goals and increase long-term costs, a debate likely that will intensify under Spanberger's administration. So again, during this time period in which he touted his record, it is, you could see it, the proof in the pudding. A lot of things did happen at his administrative time. A lot of divisive social issues and issues around education, of course, with charter schools, taking money from public schools and so forth. And then, of course, the mask and the time during COVID pandemic and teaching history, teaching the truth, calling it divisive. And then, of course, the business integration, the business increase, and, of course, the drop in various crimes and drug overdoses and the like. All of these are well documented. What's also well documented is, again, within 1 year, all of those gains were basically diminished because of the policies by the White House and its impact on Virginia, which this governor and others of his party did not criticize or really did not do that much in order to counter it by working with the White House to help our economy, help our citizens. Well, here we are right now. Governor Spanberger, she touted her agenda. In December, she reiterated this in her various speeches, including the one for inauguration. She's making affordability her centerpiece for the 2026 agenda during this time period. She proposed sweeping changes to health care, utility regulation, and housing one day after Youngkin rolled out his budget, and it will continue with legislation we'll talk about during the show coming up. Now, with this, the blueprint calls for lowering costs for Virginia families, from prescription drugs to utility bills to housing. And she framed this as a turning point for the Commonwealth's economic health. Now, again, Governor Youngkin touted the success for business here in the Commonwealth. And this governor is now moving forward, making it more affordable for all families, especially those who are suffering economically here in the state. See the differences here in their own words. So she's got what's called the Spanberger's Affordability Virginia Agenda. And with this, we find that there are some areas that she's going to focus on. So what are some of these areas? Some of these areas now are, she mentioned, affordability is not merely a household concern, but essential to Virginia's economic competitiveness. A message, she says, resonated with voters from the Eastern Shore to Southwest Virginia. She also said, at the heart of this, let's look at healthcare. Her agenda is a multifaceted healthcare package designed to tackle out-of-pocket costs, limit insurance practices, she says, that have siphoned money from patients and providers. Much of her plan echoes health priorities she outlined on the campaign trail as well. Now, keep this in mind. This centerpiece plan would restrict the role of pharmacy benefit managers, and this is according to the Virginia Mercury, or PBMs, which she describes as predatory middlemen that can inflate drug prices. A bill was created to have a sole PBM, pharmacy benefit manager, for a state's Medicaid program. It was signed into law by Youngkin in May, setting the stage for further reforms coming up in this legislative session. Now, she says no Virginian should have to choose between paying their health care, putting food on the table. So she emphasized the need to hold these individuals accountable. Also, another proposal that looks at excessive authorization for delayed care, which can lead to complications and ultimately raise costs for patients in the system. So all of us have, or have you known someone who has experienced you go to your PCP, your doctor, They say you need this procedure. And they say, well, the insurance company, they not approving it. You got to send some more documentation. Again, delay, which makes situations tend to be worse. In addition to that, we find where she's also going to tackle issues of energy efficiency. With this, stabilizing energy costs was a priority as well, highlighting widespread concerns about utility bills in the midst of growing peak demand, driven in part by, you said it, another business opportunity, data centers, and other high-load infrastructure across the state. She also said she wanted to pursue expanded energy storage to help lower peak power prices by allowing stored energy to be used during periods of high demand, when it's very hot. In addition to that, a 2025 proposal, which is being revived, would raise energy storage capacity targets for Dominion Energy, Appalachian Power, which are subject to approval by State Corporation Commission. In addition to that, we also are going to look at the solar system, such as balcony-mounted panels, solar panels, and then other areas that we can look to save costs. Also using technology to reduce costs, ensure strong resistant grid. And we're going to take a look. She's looking at housing affordability. Housing affordability is big. Even the President of the United States wanting to rein in corporations that are buying single-family homes. So her proposal includes extending the grace period before landlords can file eviction proceedings, allowing localities to adopt affordable housing dwelling units, giving local governments a right of first refusal to preserve existing affordable housing. She also calls for creating a revolving loan fund for mixed income developments, expanding Virginia's eviction reduction program. And is used like a bonding process for the state. In addition to that, balancing affordability and fiscal stability, Youngkin delivered his budget proposal Wednesday in December. And with that, he saw tax cuts, boost spending on education, public safety, Medicaid, which analysts noted potential strains ahead due to federal shifts and slower revenue growth. You can't cut taxes and increase, funding. You just can't do it. You got to have a balance. So with this, that, House Speaker Don Scott, he says it straight. Out of portion, he said voters didn't send Democrats to Richmond to admire architecture, but to deliver results. I think that sums it up. Spanberger said her agenda, for the most part, represents a starting point from which lawmakers and stakeholders will build over the coming legislative session. She also expressed optimism about bipartisan cooperation, saying conversations with House and Senate leaders indicate a shared willingness to act on affordability. She says, we will work to make everyday life more affordable for Virginians. One thing about it, the Democrats have started moving forward, and with the supermajority that they have in the House, and also the approval pen of the governor's mansion and the AG's office, the backing of the AG's office, and of course, the majority in the Senate, things can move pretty fast. They don't have to wait for the Republicans. But let's see how it all works out. It's only day one for Governor Spanberger. Congratulations, Governor Youngkin, for serving for 4 years, your state, our Commonwealth. And thank you so much, and good luck to Governor Spanberger. May you govern well. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us on this historic Sunday as we break down and discuss the historic 75th governor sworn in, the first female governor of the Commonwealth. Now, enjoy your MLK Day. Remember all that he has done for us, and remember what he stands for. And may all of us work together and live in unity. Once again, God bless, be well, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Claville.